Dark Light is a 2019 suspense horror movie in which a mother is implicated in her daughter's disappearance, who begins searching for answers when she returns to an old family home that may have an unwanted visitor. This review may contain scenes of simulated graphic violence, and is suitable for mature audiences only, so if you are ready, spoilers ahead. The movie opens with a small house on a secluded farm on a dark, eerie night. A woman, Annie Knox, moves through the house with a double-barrel shotgun while the rooms are dimly lit. She approaches the main door and heads left up the stairs to the second floor, and we can see her on high alert and seemingly looking for an intruder. She turns and calls out to her daughter Emily. Strange noises come from her bedroom, so she grabs her torch and looks under the bed, but finding nothing, she checks the cupboard. Next, we see Emily, eyes wide open and hiding from someone. She quickly locks her door and slowly backs away while someone starts rattling on the door trying to get in. Emily heads to the window to look for help. She grabs a stuffed toy to break the window but cuts her arm. Her mother walks to her room and bangs on her door while calling her name. She kicks the door open, but Emily runs away to hide. She gets into the house elevator and Annie finds some bloodied glass. The door suddenly slams shut and the lights flicker in the elevator. Annie swings the door open and fires a shot. But there is no one there. Emily steps into the doorway and a shadowy figure speeds past. She screams and her mother runs downstairs to grab her, but someone surprises them from behind, so Annie turns and blindly shoots. She hits a man and he falls, and it's Emily's father, Paul. For some strange reason, she turns towards her daughter and fires another shot. In the next scene, the police have arrived and are taking the mother away in handcuffs. Paul asks what she has done with his daughter. We are taken back to when Annie and Emily first moved into the secluded farmhouse. The mother looks around and tells her daughter it's where she grew up. She sees a lift in the corner of one of the rooms. Emily settles in her mother's old room and asks if her father is coming to live with them. Annie tells her to unpack and closes the door. Emily looks out the window over a large field of corn, and the closed door mysteriously opens by itself. Emily is curious and cautiously moves through to the next room to look inside, but it's only her mother's room. She doesn't find anything, so she leaves. It's night, the house is eerie and quiet, and everyone is sleeping. Annie gets woken up by some strange noises. It sounds like it's coming from the walls and the ceiling, so she leaves her room to go and investigate the noises. Downstairs, the ominous sounds appear to be coming from the elevator, so she grabs a flashlight to take a closer look. When she comes back, the front door is open. She's concerned and kneels down to try and see what's making those noises behind the elevator door. But when something jumps up, she is terrified. Her front door is somehow open again and she runs to shut it. The elevator lights turn on and it opens with no one inside, so she approaches, but the door slams shut. In the next scene, we are back in the present. Emily has gone missing and Annie is being interrogated by Sheriff Dickerson. The officer says Emily's father believes she has done something with his daughter, and Annie denies it. Building on the story, Paul arrives to visit Emily, and Annie looks uncomfortable in his presence. Paul and Emily hug while Annie begins to question him. They exchange formalities, and we discover that Paul had an affair while Annie's mother was dying, which caused their separation. Later that evening, Annie takes Emily into the cornfield with flashlights to play tag. They seem to be having fun until a blinding light catches Annie by surprise. She thinks it's Emily and tells her to turn the light off. Then a light turns on from another location, and then another, and Annie realizes something is terribly wrong. She panics and runs into the field shouting for her daughter, who is not responding. As Annie nears her house, she sees that Emily is in some kind of trance, standing on the edge of the roof, so she runs to save her. Sheriff Dickerson is taking a statement in the next scene. Dickerson suggests it may have been kids in the field and meets Emily, who can't remember anything. The sheriff can't offer more help as there is not much evidence, and leaves the house. Later, Emily asks her mother what she is doing as Annie is staring into the field. She tells Emily that she saw lights again the previous night and scratching sounds in the house. That evening, Annie begins investigating light phenomena and watches a clip from a man claiming that an ancient humanoid race has been living amongst us and prey on human beings. Suddenly, lights begin flashing outside and Emily is woken up. Outside, several beams of light are seen in the field. Annie tells Emily to stay put and she rushes out to confront whoever is there. The elevator door opens by itself again and she cautiously approaches. It slams shut as Emily appears, and Annie tells her to lock herself in her room. She grabs a knife and goes out to the field. She approaches the lights and threatens whoever is there. All the lights turn off simultaneously. She turns back and sees a blue light inside her room, making its way over to Emily. She runs inside and calls to her daughter, who opens the door and asks what's wrong. They don't seem to know what's happening. Dickerson is back taking another statement, but doesn't believe Annie's story. Dickerson offers to help, and just then Paul arrives. She says to talk to his ex-wife. Jumping to the present, Sheriff Dickerson claims that Annie has made up the entire story. Going back, Paul demands to know what is going on. She says it sounds like there is someone in between the walls, and he dismisses her claims. He thinks she is making up a story due to a previous nervous breakdown that Annie experienced. Apparently her mother acted the same way and then hung herself. Just then, Emily walks into the room with her face and dress full of blood. Her parents immediately react. Paul has to leave but tells Annie to call him if anything happens. He wants Emily to leave and Annie begins to cry. She finds a camera and sets it up in Emily's room so she can keep an eye on her at night. Emily is the only one who believes her mother's story. She checks the monitor and goes to sleep. Strange animalistic screeching jolts Annie out of her sleep. She checks the monitor and Emily is gone. She rushes over but Emily asks to sleep in her mother's room. The house lights flicker and a loud banging wakes up Annie. She goes to the bathroom and a figure walks into her bedroom. The door locks shut and she tries to get in as flashes of light are seen through the door. She gets inside but Emily is gone, so she runs to her daughter's room. She's gone and frantically calls the police. Sheriff Dickerson responds and on the way, almost runs over a confused and bloodied Emily. Emily asks the sheriff not to take her home, which makes Dickerson believe that her mother is abusing her. While Annie is smoking, Dickerson arrives with Emily. Emily can't explain how she got out of the house, not even when Dickerson questions her. The sheriff is very suspicious of what Annie says. Present, Dickerson wants to know where Annie's guns are that she recently bought and what she was shooting at inside her house. In a flashback, we see Annie shooting a hideous creature behind Emily, which grabs her and abducts her via the elevator. She races downstairs but Emily has vanished and she breaks down. Something took my daughter, and Dickerson has Annie arrested. Dickerson is convinced Annie has killed her own daughter and insinuates she will receive the death penalty. It's raining heavily, reducing visibility, and during Annie's prisoner transfer, the vehicle experiences an accident in which 3 prison guards and 1 inmate perish, leaving Annie the sole survivor. When she regains consciousness, she takes a key to unlock herself and escapes into the pouring rain by crossing a fast-moving river. At the crash site, Dickerson is informed of the accident and that several bodies were thrown out and washed downriver. A bruised and battered Annie returns to her home in search of Emily. She breaks into the basement to gain access. Cautiously moving through the house, she goes upstairs and bathes. She retrieves money, a .38 special, bullets, and a shotgun from a secret compartment in the floor. She investigates noises from Emily's room and heads down to the elevator. She sets up a chair and waits. Night falls, and she wakes up suddenly to sounds of something moving. In Emily's room, something is trying to open a chest from the inside. It stops, only to open by itself, and Annie investigates. She drops a ball down to estimate its depth and is attacked, but it was only a nightmare. Back on the river, 2 corpses are discovered but not Annie. Back at the house, Annie retrieves a contact number and seeks help from Walter Sims, the man from the abduction video. He knows who she is and he shows her inside. He is a researcher of strange phenomena. He says that the authorities are watching them but she still needs his help. She describes the creature which Walter sketches. Annie begins bleeding profusely from her nose and passes out. Emily wakes up on an altar and we see the alien creature as a reflection in her eye. Annie wakes up in Walter's office and he explains that the creatures are humanoids thought to be extinct and target children for food by draining their life force. She pleads for his help but the dirty bastard locks her in a room. He wants to rediscover the creatures and take credit by revealing them to the world, but Annie just wants to kill them. She screams for him to let her out. Eventually, Annie turns around to see photos of thousands of missing children pinned to the wall that Walter has been researching. In the dead of night, Walter has found his way into Knox's residence. He enters with a bag of equipment and retrieves a flashlight, and a figure immediately rushes past the doorway. As Walter investigates, a bright light shines from outside. The light is blinding and he struggles to see. What looks like headlights of a car begin to separate and Walter panics. After a bright light flashes inside the house, a creature appears and attacks Walter, slashing his face. He jumps in his car and speeds away. While he inspects his wounded face, another creature attacks him but he manages to escape after hitting a tree and makes his way to a train yard. He seeks shelter while attempting to evade the creatures. However, he is pulled under the train and killed. Next, we see Dickerson arriving at the site of his death. An officer says he's never seen anything like it before, and we see that Walter has been drained of life and savaged. The sheriffs discover his identity and head to Walter's home. Inside Walter's house, Annie is trying to escape. She sees the two sheriffs approaching as they try to gain entry to the property. They break inside and begin investigating the dark house. They find all of Walter's research along with bloodied gauze. A loud bang grabs their attention. Dickerson unlocks the room where Annie is held captive. Annie experiences another nosebleed and she narrowly avoids being discovered as Dickerson is called by her partner. They find security footage of Annie arriving on Walter's property. While they inspect the footage, Knox makes her escape. Back at the farmhouse, Annie grabs some gasoline. Inside, she grabs a pistol, a shotgun, and a lighter. As she gets ready to descend the elevator, she is disturbed by movement from the second floor. She goes up to investigate and is being observed by one of the strange beings. She makes her way down the stairs again and hides just as Paul enters the house. While looking around the house, the elevator door opens and closes and begins to move, prompting him to go into the basement. The elevator is locked, but then opens on its own again. As he inspects inside, he is attacked by a creature. Annie goes down to find Paul with her shotgun in hand. She calls for him, but no one answers. She looks into the elevator and is attacked. She fires a shot into the creature, but it still continues to chase her. She reloads at the top of the stairs, but the being has vanished when she opens the door. Just then, Dickerson appears and trains a flashlight and weapon on her. She threatens to shoot Annie, and Knox complies, but she looks up in terror as a creature violently attacks Dickerson by simultaneously burning her insides and draining her life. It then turns to chase Annie, who flees and hides. The creature tries to grab her, and she manages to electrocute the beast with a light. She figures it's their vulnerability, so finds her taser. With shotgun in hand, she follows the wounded creature to the hatch in the elevator, which she descends. At the lower level, she discovers a vast network of dark tunnels. She grabs her weapons and continues into the darkness. Annie stumbles into an opening which appears to be a holding facility. Children are captive in pits to be used later for food. She sees Paul and runs over to him. He is startled awake and has gashes on his face. The last thing he remembers is a bright light. Annie says they are under the house and they start moving through the tunnels. They move closer to a flashing light and see a beast feeding on their daughter Emily. Paul puts the keys to his truck in Annie's hand and lures the entity away from Emily by shouting. Annie tries to wake up Emily while Paul tries to evade the beast. Annie carries Emily through the tunnels as Paul turns a corner. Sadly, the beast attacks Paul and rips his throat out, and begins chasing Annie and Emily, who escape up the elevator. Annie soaks as much of the house as she can with gasoline. A creature rips through the floor and begins feeding on Annie, but she blasts it with her taser and shoots it several times. She tosses a Zippo onto the gasoline and the house quickly bursts into flames, burning the creature alive. Annie and Emily escape in Paul's truck as their home burns to the ground. The movie ends with the farmhouse in flames, and in the darkness of the fields, several beams of light begin shining through the corn. I hope you enjoyed my movie recap. Leave your comments below if you have seen Dark Light or if you would like to watch it now. Take care and see you next time.